Hello and welcome to another edition of Indiepocalypse Radio. I did not have a few weeks off. I just came back from a few weeks off, back into the saddle of hosting Indiepocalypse Radio, your weekly spot for, it's kind of like there isn't a snappy way to pitch it, but it's like Indiepocalypse Radio is like a post-con hangout that you were just kind of listening to. Also, you're like, all those people seem cool, and you're sitting at the table next to them eating your pizza while they eat their pizza and go, what are they talking about? Oh boy, I wish I could be part of that crew. Or maybe you don't wish you could be part of that crew, but it's like, it's nice to, it's fun to have. I don't know how fun it is to listen to, but I enjoy it. I love it. I'm a big fan of it. And I of course am Andrew, your host of this show, the I don't know, editor in chief, whatever, the runner, all the titles that can belong to Indiepocalypse is the thing I do. Indiepocalypse, of course, being the monthly anthology of alternative games. I pondered occasionally, like, could I just start putting like superlatives in my profile, and doesn't matter? Could I just start saying Forbes 30 under 30 and TGA Future Class and all those nonsense titles and start putting them into my bios? And does anyone check them? And do these websites exist beyond a year for anyone to be able to fact check them? I don't know. But this show is not just me.
I'm sorry.
Go. What was that?
So you can at least give yourself whatever indie apocalypse related titles you like. If you
Oh, I
like
give
indie
myself nonstop Indiepocalypse related titles.
chief technological officer of indie.
Yes, top dog, I think, is what I gave myself in Twitter, or not Twitter. What my title is in Discord. I have no desire to be a CEO and have those kind of official, like, those letterhead style announcement posts. That seems, you don't actually need to do that. There's no actual reason to do that. It seems very
My
silly.
band, my band is an LLC, and when we came together, we jokingly figured out what our titles would be
Yes, yes,
within
and
the company.
that voice you're
I'm
hearing is someone I'm trying to get around to introducing, but I just keep rambling. Uh, that is, oh, where's my cheat sheet? I need my question cheat sheet. Oh, there's questions in there too. Perfect. That voice you're hearing is the voice of Devin. Do you want to do? I have a decibel on the screen, but also, how do you prefer your surname to go by online?
both, both.
Okay.
My name is Devin Nelson, but all my tags on all my socials and all the websites is Devin Decibel.
Yes. So both of those apply to the creator you may know from Indie Apocalypse issue number 46. What's the word I'm looking for? The no longer baby child of Indie Apocalypse, the soon to be worrying about being forgotten second child, except in this case 46th child. Because the 47th is here now with
Did
Pale
you get your
Dot.
AARP card yet?
Indie Apocalypse is getting close to it. There's almost 50 of these things. Jesus Christ. Uh, it's that aforementioned Devin Decibel. I'm gonna say because that's what I typed in on the stream.
It's the easiest place to find me too.
Yes.
So,
Hello. Welcome to the show.
hello,
Uh,
glad to be here.
I played you had some music up on the top. If you mentioned your band having LLC, I played some of your independent track from Pale Dot during the preamble.
Hell yeah.
And there may be some other music coming in during this first break from another band.
I make a lot of music.
Yes, making art is fun. It's a cool thing to do. Occasionally, if I was like, wow, if I had more than 4 to 6 hours in a day of free time, I would love to make music. But then I also have to make this thing, and then I also have to eat and maintain hygiene, so that turns into then 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours, and it just keeps getting smaller.
Yeah. The pro strat I've found is to live in poverty.
Ah, yes, but I unfortunately I fear that with my my every waking existence, and I try to. I don't know how. I don't know if it's possible to not constantly worry about money, and stress about that. You will always lose it, and then you will be in poverty forever. But part of Indiepocalypse was like, what if I got people a little bit ouch, shit, I was playing you can't hear it on the microphone, but I have a knife on my desk that I play with on occasion.
That's pretty chaotic.
It's one of those, like, I got it to make my as a general purpose, but also I got it to make my, what's it called, my little capsule machine I made for my, like, events that I could put games into, because there was not, like, those cool little glass cutter things that they have in movies that cat burglars use. I don't know where they sell those, so I just got a big knife. I just got, but it flips open, and a lot of times I will flip it open and close it like I'm a street tough.
Do you carve like edgy messages into your desk?
No, because it's my desk and I need it. Those edgy messages are made for other people's desks and trees, but there are tons of trees. I could carve them into trees. It is a
Don't do that to a tree. Leave a tree alone.
fine. Speaking of things I won't leave alone, Devin, we're here to talk to you about this. Important question up the top of the show. How did you hear about Indiepocalypse? My informal survey question.
I've been seeing it posted around. I think I have a couple friends that have been in previous Indiepocalypse issues, so you're around.
Yes,
I've seen you.
I am. If I remember, can I pull it up? Do I have it on my? I believe, what's it called? A guest artist within your book was a cover artist for Indiepocalypse at one time, if I remember correctly.
Cy or Gannon?
Gannon.
Oh, cool.
Yes, if you're paying attention to the stream, the guy with the sick axe and like the very drippy sort of metal cover is a Gannon Reedy cover. So
I was a fan of his podcast.
Yes,
and
so
I followed him on. I was following him on Twitter, and he was posting commissions, and I was like, "Hey!" I pitched him my game. He was like, "Oh, that sounds fucking sick. I will totally make a commission for that."
Yeah, I was getting a newsletter, and he's like, "I'll do commission." Like, yeah, that I like cool art. Unsurprisingly, this whole thing is like, what if there was cool art, and it was in a collection, and people could buy it very easily. Because video games, which, Pale Dot not a video game, but it's within the game space. But video games is not like a space really for like cooperative video games. There's no like in-person space, or there's fewer in-person spaces for games, of like.
Also, Pale Dot is kind of based on a video game.
Yeah.
So it's video game adjacent.
Yes, that's the so people we've been talking about this Pale Dot thing. It's a thing people can presumably make art for, but it's not a video game. It's just, what is this mysterious thing that we keep referring to?
It's a tabletop role-playing game, but it is heavily inspired, particularly by the video game Outer Wilds, which is probably my favorite video game of all time.
And that is the one where you time loop solve mysteries.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like adventure game in space where there's a sort of metaphysical cosmological mystery afoot.
Yeah, I have never played.
And you're just like a weird little alien guy in a shitty spaceship that explodes immediately.
Yes, I've played neither Outer Worlds nor Outer Wilds, so I can constantly confuse the two of them.
One of them I love. One of them I think kind of sucks.
I can guess which. There it is. If you're watching, there's like, oh, it was a flail. It was a flail. My mistake. But
I like to describe Outer Wilds as a video game that Carl Sagan would have loved.
Now I'm like, we are kind of cosmic nothingness when you think about it. I like to think about.
That's the central thesis of that game.
Yes, it's something. I think there's a couple of things I think you can realize, and there's a really good Wallace Shawn essay about how he realized everything, or like it's an excerpt from a play, or I can't remember what the context of the work was, but it was like when he realized that everything came from something, like every single part of everything that we have somebody made, and then it's just like opened his mind, and then he forgot it. Eventually, he forgot it again. But the idea that like the microphone I'm talking into, the bass and the screws and the netting and all this came from a person, a different human being somewhere else in this world.
And that human was made out of stardust, as are you.
Yes.
The title Pale Dot is also a Carl Sagan reference.
Yes. That's us. We're the dot. We're the pale blue dot.
Mm-hmm. It's about I don't know if people know the story of that, but I think it's one of my favorite, like, sort of in science culture, sort of more like philosophical questions. Like at the time of the Voyager mission, they were sending the Voyager mission through the solar system and taking a picture of all of the planets and getting like sound recordings of their atmospheres and lots of data. And then eventually it hit the edge of the solar system, and Carl Sagan, I think he was at NASA at the time, or he was like what do you call it? Like a advisor. He said, "Oh, what if we turn the camera around and take a picture of Earth from the edge of the solar system?" And it was like fucking a tiny little dot. It was fucking nothing. So like that whole kind of idea of like, damn, we out here, but also we are nothing in the grand scheme of things. But also, I loved how Carl Sagan always kind of viewed that. He always saw that as like an optimistic and interesting thing rather than a like dreadful thing.
Right.
That we are. It's like, you know, you're a tiny part of a bigger picture, and that bigger picture is amazing, and we should keep studying and learning more about it.
Right. It's almost that fine. It's almost kind of like that fine line between nihilism and existentialism, you know.
And also, this is exactly what my tabletop role playing game is about.
Yes. Yeah. There's nothing. Listen, tabletop role playing games, getting axes and killing orcs, whatever. What if and they're about you know.
What if we all had an existential crisis together instead?
Yes. Right. What if we encountered our vast our indifference as a group, you know, and had pizza with it? That is, it's as someone who really unsurprisingly likes the kind of more homebrew, abstract tabletop space, instead of, but also does make crunchy games because I like making crunchy stuff, or like I like game design or whatever.
I do both.
Yeah. It is
sometimes
fun.
It's fun to have a narrative game with no dice that you just kind of like make shit up with your friends, and then sometimes it's fun to like, you know, make stats and make a build and
yes,
have optimization. Both are fun.
We are playing some DCC soon.
Okay, I like DCC.
And I didn't. My friend has like scratch off player character sheets.
I played with those too. Those are really funny.
Yes, it is like it's that kind of just OSR vein of everything is hyper difficult, and it's kind of like in a way it is the crunchy version of the existential, like, oh, my character. I had a session once where I had we were playing a game for a while. My character would die, I think, every single session, and twice in a session. And
nice.
I
have a buddy. I have a buddy who runs a lot of DCC, and he always has like random character sheets for us to pick up, or those scratch off ones.
Yeah.
And one of the characters I got was an elf whose main spell was a patron bond, I think, where you like make a deal with some sort of weird like otherworldly entity. And then under languages, it said I could speak horse.
Yes, that is.
So what I ended up having them do was like they were like the an elf in service to some sort of like fairy god that was a like Lisa Frank unicorn.
Yeah, Troika is also very good about just like encouraging just true randomness of character creation, as well as, you know, the randomness and everything else.
Troika, I like Troika too. Troika's fun.
That's how you get like a weird bird man lawyers or whatever. I think that was the last Troika character I played. I was a bird lawyer. That was good. I forgot what I was good at.
I think my last Troika character was an old lady in a wheelchair that was being pushed around by the ghost of her dead husband.
Yeah, right. It gives you that kind of.
I think I was a necromancer.
It's like the dice are best thought of as like the extra, like, you know, your final player at the table, who is like an agent of chaos also. And
Pale Dot doesn't have dice though. I chose not to have dice.
No, that's like, you also don't need to have dice. It's like it's that is like the space of indie tabletop is like, what if the world wasn't all D20s and then other things as well?
I went for the list of evocative prompts approach.
Yes, is a lot of lists, a lot of the um, it's a great thing. It's the one thing where I am like personally, I've featured solo games is a thing I personally cannot play. Like I just do not connect with them, but I like them conceptually, and they're very cool ideas of just like the solo journaling RPG of like, um, and those are very prompt heavy because like there's no one else to deliver you prompts. It's kind of
Yeah.
just you.
Yeah. I guess like Pale That could be played as a solo game. I didn't really design it with that in mind though.
Right. Yeah, I mean, technically, all games can be played solo, but
Yeah.
but anyway,
But
you know,
yeah, I went with the vague prompt approach because Outer Wilds is an incredible game, but the problem with it is that it is a mystery. So like
yeah,
once you've like gone through it and experienced the whole thing, you kind of like already know its whole shtick. So it's like kind of hard to like replay. So after I beat that game, I like watched a couple of my friends play it. I watched a couple of Twitch streamers play it just to like experience it again vicariously through another person that was still like discovering and learning things and being blown away by like the reveals in that game.
yeah,
Um, so I was like, man, how do I like? I can't keep doing this. I can't keep just watching other people play this video game. So it was my design challenge. It's like, how can I get that experience into a tabletop game that can be played infinite number of times? Um,
yeah,
and I went with just like a bunch of vague locations with vague prompts, so that like every time it's played, that thing will be different. And
right.
like,
Like
and since
you,
it's different people, the connections between all of the things will be different, and it's all like kind of found narratively and like procedurally through play.
yeah. There is like the human imagination is a vast thing. It's kind of we spend a lot of time with it. It is, and there's like it just like you could run the same prompts like the same like exact same configurations of prompts through like 17 different groups or even the same group 17 different times and potentially end up with like such wildly different approaches to them every time, which is like one of the beauties of tabletop that you can't necessarily recreate in within like the strictness of like a rule-based video game.
Yeah.
But the
Also, like the tone can be wildly
yes,
different. I've
right,
had one Pale Dot game end in my character having to like sacrifice her life as she turned into coral to like make an opportunity for the rest of her people could escape their dying world, and it was really grim and dark. And then I had another game where we all had like a big group hug and like healed the sun with the power of friendship. So
yeah, yeah. There's
it could go a lot of different ways.
right there is and each you never know what you're going to bring. I mean, I have the same like play approach where sometimes I'm going to be an unhinged weirdo. Sometimes I'm just like polite and arbiter of peace. Like there is play is a fun thing, you know. It's why we. But I got a question here. Uh, Speaking of favorite things, but not games. Devin, what's your favorite non-game work of art that you experienced this year? This is from Linker, friend of the show and past guest.
Oh fuck. uh uh this has been a weird year for me because I've
Yeah.
been so focused on my own shit this year.
Yes. No. That happens. That was me for like a long time, and then like in the past couple of years, I have like deliberately like 2 hours before bed, I am watching a movie, I am reading, I am doing something like that.
Yeah. Um Ooh, reading. Let me look at my bookshelf. What have I read this year? Um I guess one thing that was significant, I'm not going to point out a specific book, but like
Yeah.
starting last year and ending this year, I read all of Terry Pratchett's Discworld.
Okay.
Like
that's
40,
an undertaking.
41 books.
Yes.
And I finished them this year, and that left a big impact on me. I've been kind of a Pratchett fan for at least this entire process of reading the books, but like his kind of like vibe influenced a lot of the games that I've developed in the interim since beginning to read those books.
Yeah, I on the top of my stack in like the similar kind of idiosyncratic fantasy author vein. The DCC we're gonna be playing is uses like the Dying Earth module. So my friend gave me his book of Dying Earth to read.
I don't know anything about that.
It's a bunch of asshole wizards who hate each other. Yeah, it is. How do I describe it? I haven't read it all, but it's kind of like just a lot. It feels like a lot of pettiness. It's like the Earth is gonna die, but no one knows when, and everyone's kind of weird and petty and powerful about it. It's fun. It's fun to read, but cool. We've got some other questions, some standby questions that are not technically in the thing. Indiepocalypse.com/questions, of course, being where the questions live. But two of my standbys are that were submitted for months on end, and eventually I decided, what if I just made them regular questions? And those questions, of course, being, Devin, what's your favorite type of rock?
My favorite type of rock? Ooh. I mean, like classification of rock or specific like mineral?
Up to your interpretation.
I should know this because I taught earth science for a sec, but
well, that means you're too you're too deep in,
Yeah, I'm an ex-high school teacher. But mainly taught chemistry. I just had to teach one section of earth science one year. I've always been a fan of igneous rocks. I always find that kind of fun.
And as a follow-up, do you have a favorite Toho character?
I have not engaged with that genre of media,
but
that's a franchise, right?
Yes, yeah, it's a long-running Dojin franchise.
Gotcha.
Mostly bullet hells, but we don't have time to get into Toho.
All right, I'm gonna Google Toho character, and I'm gonna pick the first one that I see that I like.
Okay, perfect. There are a lot of cool-looking guys, or none of them are actually guys, but there's a lot of cool-looking Toho folk.
All right, first page of Google results. She looks like a witch.
Marisa.
Marisa, yeah.
A fan favorite.
She's got a Kiki vibe. I'm a big fan of Kiki.
That's
also some of my favorite Terry Pratchett books are about young witches.
Well, perfect. Now, both. That is another Terry. Now, that's one of those things where, what if I had more time and then I could just read all those Terry Pratchett books? But time is increasingly finite.
I read a bunch of books by multitasking. I would like walk and read, which I don't recommend because it's kind of dangerous. But if you have like slow areas where you're not in danger of getting hit by a car, I was able to read a lot by like moving my body at the same time, and like that helped me like focus.
Yeah. Now I just do not have I don't walk. I have to drive to places. I would not recommend driving and reading.
Me neither.
It's a great way to do two things poorly. But speaking of finite time, Devin, our time here is reaching its end. But I hope you'll stick around. We have more show to go. But in the meantime, hey, give me a little intro. Tell me a little bit about not like you don't need to go in full plug mode, but tell me a little bit about our upcoming artist played during the break, Gloomy June.
Oh yeah. So in addition to being a game designer, I'm also a composer, and I am the one of the songwriters in a band called Gloomy June. Um, we are from San Francisco, but we tour a little bit around the U.S. So you might see us on a flyer at some point. We are the genre is always kind of hard to describe because I feel like the best genre description is pop punk. But I
Right.
feel like when you hear the word pop punk, you think of a specific thing, and we're not that. So in order to get around that, I sometimes call us punk pop. I like switch the words.
Yes, it's musical genres are piles of nonsense.
But the bands we've been compared to most are Paramore and Metric because we're like sort
Perfect.
of indie, we're kind of punk, we're very pop. We have a female vocalist. There's some synthesizers in there.
Perfect. Perfect. And Dan, thank you for being here. We're going to be going on break, and we'll be back in roughly 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Goodbye for now. Hello, welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was, the aforementioned Gloomy June with Pisces. We are here now joined by our second guest of the day, who you may know not from Indiepocalypse, but like technically from a good amount of Indiepocalypse in a weird kind of a roundabout sort of way. It's Adam Ledoux from let's say from the world, but in the context you might know from Bitsy.
Right.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi there. Hi,
Hello
Andrew.
there.
Thanks for having me on. I'm very happy to be on the show. Definitely a fan of Indiepocalypse and just the general, yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's
project.
well. Thank you. As someone took umbrage with to some point, I'm a fan of Bitsy as well. I think it's a cool. It's a very cool tool that I'm a big advocate on the show of just tools that make things easier for people to make games.
Thanks. Yeah.
And some
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah.
and something that can be made within browser is a very easy tool because people forget that computers are expensive.
Yes. Yes, they are for sure.
And
Yeah, you can even like, if you're patient enough, you can even make use it on your phone browser.
yeah, for people who are unfamiliar, what is Bitsy?
What is Bitsy? Bitsy is a game making tool or game engine, whatever terminology you prefer. It's basically, I guess the long-standing tagline for it is it's a small engine for making small games, worlds, and stories. And so essentially, it's sort of a no code, low code tool. You draw little people. They got to be like 8 by 8 pixels. You can put some dialogue in them. You can kind of walk around in sort of a top-down 2D. Um, you know, I think of it as like sort of like a JRPG town type of world. Um, and interact with things. Yeah, hopefully that
No,
sort of
yeah,
sums it up.
yeah, no, that sums it couldn't sum it up more clearly. It is straight to the point. That's what it is.
Yeah, I feel like I should have a more succinct pitch after all these years, but here we are.
You and me both. um, but I think that's like the benefit of something. It's not like we were talking about AMVs during the break, but there's like when you make something that's like non-commercial, you don't necessarily have to have a pitch. There's like you kind of
Yeah, so
free yourself from that kind of like having to have a really smooth marketing line.
it kind of is what it is, and you either, vibe with it or you don't, I guess.
Yeah, right. And it is a very useful tool for people to make games, and like there's a good amount of it's about like one per issue, honestly, because
Yeah, yeah, and
it
that's
allows people to make so many, and like how there's so many like hacks of Bitsy at this point as well, or like?
Yes, there's actually a whole repository on GitHub of just hacks that you can use to extend Bitsy in different directions, from like simple things like different text effects to all the way up to like adding multiplayer to your Bitsy game.
Right, making it 3D.
Making it 3D, yes. Yeah. So that stuff is really cool, and I always like to shout out Sean LeBlanc, who has managed the community Bitsy hacks repository for a long time now, because
Yeah, there's like,
that's a big project in and of itself.
right. That's the
And
thing you forget often about this kind of um, I don't know what you call it, this organizational work or this sort of like tool making. It is often very volunteer driven, kind of by
yeah, for
necessity.
sure. And that was like it's not something I ever had any hand in. It kind of sprung up organically
Right.
through the community of folks who were working on Bitsy games sort of early on, and that and Sean kind of helped organize that into like a central place where people can find that, which is really cool.
Yeah, because it's very much like a lot of times someone probably just like looks and goes, well, somebody needs to actually be doing this thing." Uh, you know, like someone's like, "Oh, somebody needs to be organizing all of these like different forks and splits and add-ons and repositories, or else it's just unusable." And it's like someone's like, oh, I like when people use this tool, so I want to make it more usable.
Yeah. And I guess it's kind of also like sort of the beauty of it being a web tool in a sense is it is approachable in that way. You don't have to like decompile a binary or something. Just sort of
Yeah, no,
right click, view source, you know. That's one thing.
I have talked with people who are like, yeah, I use, I have a 10-year-old laptop and that is my computer, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
Bitsy has been basically entirely programmed on a now 13-year-old MacBook that I'm calling into the show with at this moment.
yeah, that's old computers. Like the computers are good for a very long time. They got a good lifespan on them.
You wouldn't know it, but yeah, they can.
I've computers and phones. I basically use them both until they stop working entirely, until they refuse to turn on.
Yes, I'm with you there for sure. Um,
But
for many reasons. I have like sincere ideological reasons why like I think it's not good to just throw these things out every couple of years.
yeah, it's
Um, and then also I have my weird nostalgia reasons of like, but this computer has seen me through so many Bitsy updates. How can
right. And
I get rid of
if it
it?
still works, it still works. There's no need to.
It's got so many stickers on it now.
Yes. Are you gonna take those stickers off? And that seems like a pain.
That's a pain. And also, you know, like I want to get a new computer now, but I do like there's probably be some weird touch screen on it now. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been thrown off by sometimes laptops that have touchscreens when I've pointed at something and then the computer moved. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, what are you doing there? Websites are not you're not meant to touch websites, except I guess mobile, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Touch, uh, not a big website toucher, but oh,
I mean, yeah, who can say, really?
but
What does a website think about that? You know?
yes, or more. Maybe there's room for anyway. Websites. Enough of websites. Let's talk.
Not bad.
I keep hearing myself a little, freaking myself out.
That's okay.
Sorry. Um, Adam, you got some time to prepare for this question. Linker
Sure.
asks, what's your favorite non-game thing you experienced this year, art-wise?
Yeah, all right. So yeah, so I was scrambling through my memory while
Yes,
Devin was answering this. So
the benefit of
thank you,
being in
Devin,
the
for
second and
taking.
third slots.
Yeah,
I wasn't prepared for any of those questions.
thank you for taking the call, Devin. Yeah. Um, take one for the team. Yeah. So I guess I was mulling it over, and I think kind of interesting. My answer is sort of it's got two parts to it. I have been listening to a new podcast this year called Shelved by Genre, which is. Oh, by the way, you may hear some noise in the background. I'm watching. Got these 6-month-old twins that they
Yeah.
need to be watched constantly. So apologize for the noise, but they don't know they're on air.
No, that's fine. It's yeah, no.
But I'll try and speak over them. I've got opinions too.
Yeah,
Um,
what do they think about Discworld? How many Discworld books have they read so far?
I don't think they've read any, but I think they're preparing to do Earthsea at some point, which I'm going to be excited for.
Yeah. Perfect.
but as I was saying, yeah, so I've been listening to Shelved by Genre. It's a podcast, it's part of the Range Touch network. But it's new this year. The pitch is basically like they are investigating genre in all its forms. It's kind of got a book club element to it. So at the moment, they are just wrapping up reading Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun series of science fantasy books. And so I've been listening along with that and also rereading those books. I last read them like a decade ago or something like that. So it's been this really interesting experience to kind of like reread some books that like had a pretty big impact on me a decade ago and kind of have it recontextualized both through like the really interesting criticism they're doing on the podcast, and also just sort of like my own kind of growth as a human being in the intermittent decade, I guess.
Would you
I like
recommend checking out those books?
I would if you like weird dark science fiction fantasy. Definitely it's worth checking them out. They have
I
their issues, but
yeah.
they're pretty cool. I like.
I'm curious because I listen to pretty much all of Austin Walker's other podcasts,
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah,
and
also a big
I like hearing him talk about media. But
Yeah.
I didn't want to listen to the podcast without reading the books. So
Yeah. No, that makes sense. They do try and like recap the the book so you can follow along without it, but it's certainly I think probably a richer experience to read as well. And I think they just published the last episode on the series, and now's a good time to dive in. But yeah, I've really been enjoying that and like finding both like new things to appreciate about these books and also new things to be sort of like frustrated about with them. Um,
Yeah, that's kind of like the weird thing is like I think about with like stuff I like. It's hard to like, you change so much within even 5 years that like what do I think about this thing 5 years later with 5 years worth of new experiences, and it's you have to like you can
yeah,
always be like recontextualizing things that you enjoyed. So in like I got to reread this, I got to reread this now that I know its influences, or now that I know its influences, or now that I just have like a different perspective on things in general, and I have
yeah, yeah. It's pretty interesting. It's been a cool sort of I don't know, just like multi-layered experience with some interesting art. So I've been enjoying that. Also, Andrew, you mentioned Dying Earth,
yes.
um, and the Book of the New Sun series is like um, it's specifically influenced by like Jack Vance's Dying Earth works,
That's
and it's
that's
in that.
I actually confused them both for a while or a little while, so that's why I assumed.
Yeah,
uh,
it's in that genre or subgenre, I guess, of science fiction.
the Dying Earth subgenre.
Yeah, I've
Um,
never actually read I've never read any of the Jack Vance stuff, but
That
it'd be
is,
interesting.
it's it is that same kind of it delves a little in that same kind of science magic sort of thing. That's where the concept of like spell slots comes from. Because
Really?
yeah, the
Is that
idea,
like D&D got that?
yeah, the idea is that you can only memorize, like, spells are these massive equation sort of things. You can only like memorize so many of them. You can only
Right.
fit so many of them in your brain at once.
That's really interesting and funny.
So you have
I like
to,
it.
like, yeah, it's got a good sense of humor to it. I think genre is fun. I like genre. Like,
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
especially in like the past 5 or 10 years, genre has taken a big hit where people are very like genre works when you're very sincere about genre, you know.
Yes. I think I see where you're going with this. Yeah.
But when you can't take it seriously, like, and you have to like undercut like the because genre is kind of silly, you know, when you sit back and look at it.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah, it's
bunch.
interesting. Like if you're constantly sort of you can sort of lose the potency of that like magic spell if you're constantly sort of like mugging at the camera to be like,
Right.
you get a load of these guys. Look at all the tropes that they're hitting or
Yeah.
whatever.
I or like just don't
Yeah.
take your commit like don't take your lore seriously as like
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because like yeah, I agree often that like you have to sort of commit to the bit as it were with
yeah,
genre. But then also like some of my favorite genre works are also kind of at the same time poking fun at it. Like I'm a
right.
big Douglas Adams fan, Hitchhiker's Guide.
Well, the tricky part of that is poking fun is very easy, but you have to be a good writer to do it
Yes,
well.
which she was.
Terry Pratchett constantly retcons his own lore with reckless abandon, so
Yeah.
Yeah, Terry Pratchett is such a great example for this because it is like
he doesn't give a shit about his own lore.
humorous and it's like playing with the fantasy tropes, but at the same time he also like kind of takes his world super seriously, at least some of the time, like the implications of it all. Like it feels very alive. It doesn't feel like
He
yeah,
takes
it's
the
not
important stuff He takes the important stuff seriously and nothing else.
Right,
right.
right. The idea that like it's like it's you don't want to be too much on the opposite end of the spectrum where you have like your strict lore Bible and that is 100% what you do. You have to go like, oh wait, no, I'm an author. I'm the author of this work. I can do whatever I want. That this is actually still a made up world.
Right.
And I can make up new things about it whenever I want to. There is
Right.
no rules here, which is
Yeah,
like
where like
even
the lore takes precedence over sort of the like artistic effect that you're trying to.
right, right. Because there are also these absurdity of being like, oh no, well the rules of the universe are that this couldn't happen. It's like, well, the rules of the universe is I wrote it.
Yeah, it's like a fine balance to
Yeah.
maintain, and there's not really a right answer because it's art. It's
Right,
subjective.
right. Oh,
But you know it. You know when it's good, or at least I feel like you do.
there's no right answer to what there's no objective good art. What? Oh, weird.
There's no objective good art, and yet somehow I don't know. Anyway.
Yes, somehow we must give awards to the best arts.
Hmm. Yes, I've
Uh,
heard. So I've heard.
or not, or not. Part of the pleasure of being offline is that I don't know anything about anything that's going on anymore, and it's like I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
the two things I know about the Game Awards is that, or three things. They happened recently. Gonzo was there.
Wait, the Muppet?
Yes, and
Yeah, and they pretty much only just made a joke about him fucking chickens.
Okay.
nice.
All right. Well, you know more about it than I do, I guess, because
Yeah.
I was just watching it at 2 times speed because I was curious but didn't care that much.
I made it. I that had not made it into my consciousness that Gonzo was there. Did Gonzo get an award?
Probably best performer. He probably got like best.
I feel like I should have known because I have a toddler who's very into Sesame Street currently, so I'm kind of steeped in Muppet
Uh,
stuff
It was
at the
just an
moment.
excuse to have Jeff Keighley to have somebody to bounce off of, so he could take up most of the time of the award show.
oh, so they could have a more human. They could have a more human person on stage.
Uh-huh.
Oh no.
Meanwhile, all of the developers that are winning our awards are getting like a fucking wrap it up music cue after talking for like a minute.
That was the other thing I knew is that the actual acceptance speeches were approximately like 10 minutes of the show.
Everybody looks like they have a fucking gun to their head when they're accepting their award.
It's
crazy.
But that's why I tune to shows like the Oscars and the Grammys to see all the trailers for upcoming movies.
They also like made a joke on stage with the God of War voice actor guy who did like a 10-minute speech last year, and they like started playing music as soon as he got up there as like a bit. But it's like, man, you can't make fun of yourself, but then also like fucking torture all these other people that are trying to get awards.
Wait, that's the class. That is actually the classic video game thing though, where it's like, isn't it stupid that you have to collect 13 bear pelts? Anyway, go collect 13 bear pelts. Adam, how many bear pelts do you collect on the average day? Would you say
Oh gosh.
for your local townsfolk?
Yeah, well, at least 13. You got to keep up.
How else are you gonna get a gallon of
Cold
milk?
here. Currently pretty cold here in Seattle, so the bear pelt
Oh
market
no,
is
I am back into that cruel New England winter.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's probably much worse.
Yeah, I
We
think
at least
we are
have,
latitudinally similar.
yeah, it's true, but for whatever weird, Seattle has kind of an odd microclimate that
Yeah.
sort of helps keep it a little warmer. But yeah, pretty cold and rainy today.
Cold down here in San Francisco, but all our buildings are like thin and have no insulation or heaters or air conditioners. So
Oh yeah. Well,
sometimes it's colder inside my house than it is outside my house.
Oh gosh. No.
we are packed with them
Yeah.
here. But speaking of packed with them, something I want to talk about before we get to our end of the segment. Oh no, I forgot the name of it. There is a regular Bitsy game jam that is hosted.
Yeah. The Bitsy Jam.
Bitsy. Oh, it's just called Bitsy Jam. Right on
It's
the.
called, it's called hashtag. I guess it's sort of called hashtag Bitsy Jam because
Yeah.
when I started it, it was
But that is like.
Hey,
So
hey,
when
hey,
did you
Twitter.
start that?
When did I start that?
Yeah.
I started that boy, it would have been, let's see. So I started working on Bitsy. I made the first version of Bitsy in 2016. Yeah. Nothing else happened that year of note.
No.
And then
The U.S. has been like really quiet for like the past 7
Yeah.
years. Like not much happens around here.
all been fine.
Boring country, TBH.
Yeah, for sure. But so then and then at the time I did not have an itch account actually. It was just on my website. And then through the mysterious ways of the internet, people started to actually find and people I didn't know, which I never expected, started to find Bitsy and make games with it. And then send them to me on Twitter, and invariably, well, not all of them, but many of them were on itch. And I was like, oh, this itch thing seems pretty interesting. I should check it out. I got on there, I guess the following spring. It was spring 2017. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's like, they got this cool jam feature on itch. You should try and do a Bitsy jam. So that was around then when I did the first Bitsy jam, and it's been an almost monthly occurrence since then, except for when our life gets in the way, as it were. But
Right.
but yeah, actually, the part of the whole thing is part of what I do for the Bitsy jams is kind of open it up to folks on the internet for what themes they think would be fun to do. Collect those on itch and then turn it into sort of a poll where people can vote on on a few options. So that's
'cause-
actually live
'cause
right now.
Even jams sometimes feel sometimes like a very regimented, like companies are like, let's get into game jams. It's very official. It's very prize money thing, and it's like that's supposed to be the hangout, the chill spot of game development.
Yes, it can get very non-chill very fast, but Bitsy jams, they're pretty chill. There's no winners. You don't even have to use Bitsy. Um, I accept stuff made in sort of like Bitsy-like tools as well. So
Right,
I
right,
frequently get stuff made in Mosey and Bipsy as well.
because like what's I mean,
It's
aside from
sort
the
of
people who just like submit to literally every jam because that's the weird thing they do.
yes, those I do. I do. I do have to sort of
Just remove them.
start those out. Yeah, because it'll be like something called like totally not a virus.apk or whatever.
Right, right, and their list of joined jams is longer than itch will allow to display.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a very strange thing. But
Yeah.
speaking of things,
Hmm.
what's your favorite type of rock?
My favorite type of rock. Yes, I was thinking about this too, and I came up with two answers that are both a little tongue in cheek. The first is whatever they're playing on KEXP, but
No,
hey.
that is the those are the one and two main interpretations of when people say what is rock. It's
Yeah,
the
yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's
Can
our
I update my answer from
local.
earlier?
yes.
Hmm?
Geodes, because you can cast spells with them.
Okay.
Ah, good one, yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's like a crystal shop down the road from where I live.
Do they have
Like,
wizards? Do they have those pewter wizards?
I don't know that if they do, but if they don't, they should. Yeah,
That's
for
in my
sure.
mind that those guys are like anything that sells crystals or like those weird souvenir knickknack shops. Those little pewter wizards with the little stabs and little crystals on them.
Yes, those things. Yeah, I haven't thought about those in a while, but it's a good,
I wonder if I
it's a good.
have them, or if I just my childish wonder. I always wanted one. But your
Yeah.
second answer,
My second answer, I was like, okay, what's the geological answer? And I was like, kind of fond of nice because it lends itself to some good puns. Uh,
and speaking of,
hey man, that rock's really nice.
I was like, I don't know if there's
Great.
puns. I don't know if there's
Again,
puns there. But speaking of, let's just. There's no transition here. Do you have a favorite Toho character?
yeah, so for this, I have to disappoint and say I do not. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, not quite true. I've since joining cohost.org, it's getting an
Yes.
account on that website. I have learned things about Toho because it seems to be a very Toho friendly website. There's a lot of Toho posting going on over there. Before that, I had never heard of Toho, and I've yet to play a Toho related thing, although I know there is one in the
Yeah.
latest Indiepocalypse by Lily Valine, and I'm a fan of her work, so I will
Yes.
definitely be playing that at some point.
Exactly the most recent, the very first Toho within an indie. Is that the first? I think so. I think that's the first Toho within Indiepocalypse.
Yeah, and now you just got to start to build up that Toho Indiepocalypse crossover cinematic universe.
Aye, and Zune seems like a cool guy to hang out with, honestly.
Yeah,
Like,
probably. I don't know.
you
But
see,
yeah, I don't know much. I haven't known. It hasn't really been on my radar till recently, but I am looking forward to playing the game in the zine.
yeah,
Um,
Just Google it and pick a character that you like I did.
yeah, I will.
First impressions.
I need to form like I need to have like a like ongoing relationship with one of these
See?
characters.
Okay. Okay.
This is very serious. Very
Yeah,
serious.
you can't
Okay, I'm
just.
now okay. There is all right. I don't know. There's a character. I'm on the fandom wiki right now as
Yes.
we speak. So this will define me forever, probably. So it's a serious moment here, but okay. All right, there's a character here called Eternity Larva, that's a good name.
Yeah, there's a lot. You know what? I will allow you to. I will check in with you, Adam, if you're available to for the.
First stage boss and when Berserk overflowing with power. All right, yeah, sure. Good with
There you go.
that.
So then you just need to make sure that you play Hidden Star in Four Seasons as your first Toho,
All right.
and just like, what's your familiarity with bullet hell in general, the Danmaku genre?
Yeah, that's like a genre I haven't engaged that much with. My main experience with it is probably through Undertale, to be honest.
Yeah, and
Yeah, because I'm more of a spend more time in the like RPG
yeah.
space. Um,
Well, if you ever play Toho and then the music starts on, and then 3 seconds you'd be like, "Oh, Toby Fox likes Toho a lot."
I would not be surprised. Yeah.
It is like there's
Um,
like feel you can feel the compositional lineage there. But
nice.
anyway,
And that is enticing because Toby Fox can definitely have some good tunes.
yeah, no, even if you just listen to it, Toho's got good tunes in it.
Yeah, or
At one
we
point, I
like the good.
downloaded all the soundtracks.
Nice. Oh, hey, Rock Band. Almost.
But but in the meantime, we're going to be going on break. Adam, thank you for joining me here. There's Fubar. Found it. It was hiding on me.
Hey, all right. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for having me on.
No
It
problem.
was a lot of fun.
We'll be back in like 2 minutes and 3 seconds. Bye for now. Hello, welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. This is Harumi Hasono with Party. We are back with our final guest of the evening, the afternoon, the time of day you're listening to it. From issue 45 of Indiepocalypse with Cycle Chaser H5 is David. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Welcome. Now, you've had some time to prepare for this question. Off the top, I got to fill up my survey. How did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
I heard about it through a friend of mine that also does game dev. That contribute, I think, to issue 43. I think they go by Roxy S now, or it might have been
Yeah.
Squiggly Dot.
Both of
They
those names
did.
familiar to me.
Mm-hmm. So they write visual novels, and then for a very recent one she did for Game Jam, she got me on board as an artist. And so that was how I heard about this place through that. Mm-hmm.
It's a made-up word, or not a made-up word. I think that's Netrologia. Is that the name of the game?
I think it's pronounced Neotrogla. I think it is a
Neotrog-
real word. I Googled it pretty close to after I played it. It has something
Yes.
to do with like a base form of an insect subspecies, I think.
Yeah. It's one of those words that you just need to learn, like lepidoptery, you know?
Oh
But,
boy. Do I want
uh,
to know what that means?
that's butterfly collecting.
Lepidoptery, I think it's called.
Lepidoptery, yes. I've always pronounced it Lepidopterus. There's a show that I watched the episode of Lepidopterus a lot. That uses the word frequently.
Oh, really?
Venture Brothers.
Adventure Brothers, yes.
Oh my goodness.
I have speaking of people who just kind of bullshit around with their lore, but
That lore goes deep though.
it does. It's the same kind of vibe, and that's kind of why I think I would probably. The more I hear about Discord, the more I would like it. REP to a legend that lasted 20 years for 6 seasons or whatever.
Yeah.
A very singular, kind of weird thing. That also going back to things. But anyway, we're not here to talk about a show that you could almost trick me into talking about forever. So, if people aren't familiar, what is Cycle Chaser H-5?
So Cycle Chaser, it's a horizontal shoot 'em up. I produced the demo for it as part of a college project, specifically my senior design project. And everyone in my class was like, "You need to make this into a real thing," and so I did. And I spent about 9 months working on it. The central thing I was going for is kind of making something similar in style to. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with it, but the Thunder Force games
Yes.
by Technosoft. And those games, pretty short. Stages move very fast and have a lot of bosses. It never sticks around in one spot for too long. and you get a surplus of. In those games, it's about 5 different weapons that all have different radial functions. Like you get one that shoots ahead, behind, vertically, in a custom direction that you input, and then one that homes on. For mine, I streamlined it to about just 3: a forward, a spread, and a homing shot. And then some of my other influences were kind of like from Taito's games, maybe about mid-90s, with like Darius Gaiden and Metal Black, where they're still kind of building on a lot of like the traditional horizontal shooter gameplay style, but they're trying to be like, how can we tell very passive stories through this? Like,
Right.
we're not like having a story that you sit down for, but you see things about the world that you're fighting through being suggested very passively through the environment, through the way that the enemies behave, and like pre-battle animations, how they react to damage, stuff like that.
Yeah, you don't think of like shooters, the shmup style as like a story style. They feel like the most just if looking in from the outside, if you're unfamiliar with the genre, you're like, oh no, this is video gaming as video games get. But
Mm-hmm.
but kind of like with fighting games is there's a lot of personality that you inject with like within the back, just even backgrounds and enemies themselves, like
Mm-hmm.
tell stories.
Definitely. Though I have to admit, as like someone on the other side of it, like someone already invested in shmups and making them,
Yeah.
looking into it, there's definitely more room to grow as far as the maturity of storytelling in the medium goes.
Right.
It feels like something. There's a lot of independent shmup developers who really want to push storytelling and like immersion in the shmup world further. But it feels like a lot of people are thinking about very literally and physically. Like there has to be like dialogue and like physical events occurring.
Right.
And
Right.
sometimes those aren't always congruous with the structure that people intend to place shmups in. Like
Right. Or
you sit down with like a half hour, hour long game and you loop it over and over again to perfection.
right. Or they're just they're just excised. Where it's like, here is the story version, here is the game portion, right? And there the twain shall meet is like the most obvious way to do it, but it's not like the
The
most
most graceful way to do it.
right, exactly, the best way to do it. It's like, well, I guess you
Hmm.
could do this, but how much is it actually integrating and like speaking with the genre, or is it like, could you have put this in between any kind of video game?
There are definitely some shmups in the indie space that do just do the physical split of gameplay, story, and make it work. There's this one that comes to mind. I think it's called Imperishable Memories. And it kind of has I guess I would compare it to like a Suda 51 framing style, where
Yeah.
it's a lot of isolated events being jump cut back and forth to, with very like chilling presence and focus. It's it's a very emotionally strong game. Definitely a recommendation from me.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Because, let me. Who is this person? Oh, Toho Friend Games.
Ooh.
I'm looking at something very important. Ooh. Well, actually, huh?
Actually,
No, this is me. This is me going, huh? Interesting. Anyway, I will say that maybe during the break. What I just stumbled upon something. But anyway,
hmm.
um, yes, I have to shake myself back to the thing. Yeah. So now, I imagine you also play a lot of. Do you have a preference? No, important question. Do you have a preference between vertical or horizontal? Does it make a difference at all?
Uh, I would definitely say I have a preference towards horizontal because to me, the game feel of the shmup matters more than the game design of a shmup.
Yeah.
And when you have vertical, the way the world around you is framed is you're looking from the bird's eye view, top
Yeah.
down.
Right.
And so that kind of limits the closeness of both the environmental art, enemy art, the space that you occupy. And then you get like horizontal shooters. I want to go back to Darius Gaiden. It's like you get these enormous close-up shots of these like giant mechanical fish characters, and you feel like the rigidness of their clanking parts shifting back and forth, and you get the parallax of like the oceans and space behind you, and that's just it's like this beautiful picturescape. It's like looking at a painting, honestly.
Yeah, no, that is the other, I think, uh, kind of kinship with fighting games. They're like so many shooters, just like visual, like little masterpieces. They're beautiful to look at.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a spec. I mean, even then, even like in the if you go straight into like the bullet hell genre, there's like a spec. There's like a design to like bullet patterns.
Yeah, well, that's the other nice thing about visual design in shmups. It can come from either the asset production level design, being like how I've drawn these characters and how they're animated, or you can focus on how the objects are arranged as far as the bullet patterns, like
Yeah,
you were saying.
even like bullet and enemy patterns are almost like what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking on the word. Um,
Maybe like a kaleidoscope?
yeah, a kaleidoscope or a it's a type of performance like almost like a synchronized dance sort of thing. Everyone is like and everyone is like moving and hitting their beat and like moving along to a routine,
Definitely, definitely.
and it creates a very specific kind of like artistic like flow to it that it can be easy to not think about like when you like when you actually have to like sit down and make them. You're like, oh well, am I just gonna make them go straight? Do enemies just spawn and go in a straight line? It's like, well, that's visually uninteresting. Usually there's like so how do they move and why do they move like that? And like you said, like why when you look at an enemy, and it should make sense the way they move,
Mm-hmm.
like the kind of like whether they are just going straight or have like a zigzag pattern or kind of are coming up and down from the screen.
Well,
With
something even with enemy design is like intentionality on the enemy's behalf.
Yeah,
Like how you frame the enemy's movement is a very good way of communicating their their role or like their threat relative to the player. Because you get a lot of shmups where the enemies you fight or shoot against aren't necessarily like a conflicting combatant. It's just like a naturally flowing participant in the world you're in. That's
right.
sometimes how the Darius games tend to be, where it's just like this marine life that's kind of caught in the crossfire, and it's kind of just acting on instinct, as opposed to maybe something like many of the Toa Plan shmups, where you were explicitly going against an enemy army, and it's opponents' fighters that are making specific fire against you and are darting towards you.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that even just from like, if you play a lot of games, you can like, especially if you go a lot of games, and even like older games, it's like you realize a lot of these enemies are not like attacking me. They're just kind of like you're like moving through a world that is kind of moving on its own thing and just sort of doing its own thing.
Yeah, maybe a good way to compare it would be like a surfer going up against a wave.
Right.
All of this massive, like, combined force of water, and then this one tiny person on a board fighting against it or going against it, you know?
Yeah, right. You were just like it is going to theoretically exist whether you were there or not, and you just
Hmm.
happen to be there.
Definitely.
You can see how
That
that.
was.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. You go ahead. It's all good.
I was gonna say, and you see how that sort of thing naturally, like once you start thinking of that, how someone's naturally led to like, oh, there's a lot of story I can tell in this kind of framework,
Hmm. Absolutely.
this sort of approach.
It was definitely one of the bigger things going through my head in Cycle Chaser. There's because the enemy characters in that game are kind of meant to be representative of like nature as a personified force. And there's definitely a lot of them, that exist just to be like part of that world's ecosystem, and they don't like have any like pertinent like malice towards you. They're not like directly attacking you. Again, just caught in the crossfire. But then you do have like that conflict of ones that are like actively malicious towards you. That kind of like knowing when and where and how to design those kinds of enemies. It's a very minor thing, but I would definitely say that the minor things are like what makes and breaks the difference between one shmup's storytelling to another, you know?
Yeah.
It's not always the big picture things.
Well, we've been talking a lot about video games, but you've had some time to prepare for this question. Non-games. What's your favorite you've experienced this year?
So I did have time to think,
Yes.
and I did like kind of realize I've been so stuck in the game dev minds that I kind of haven't been doing a whole lot besides games.
Yeah.
But I have seen a couple movies, and one movie I remember that I really did like feel a lot from was I saw Ghibli's Porco Rosso, and
Okay.
that was a really incredible film. I mean, most of their films are, but
People are
it's
breaking out the Ghiblis I have not seen today.
mhm,
I think.
You
I
haven't
was
seen
gonna
Kiki?
say that's one of my faves.
mhm.
My laptop
But
background right now is the the airplane from that movie.
oh my goodness,
Actually,
yeah.
are those the only two that I haven't seen? Porco Rosso and Kiki?
There's
Well,
still
there's
a
a
lot
lot
of
of
big ones I have yet to
Yeah.
see.
there's a lot of non Hayao Miyazaki ones too. There's a lot of Goro Miyazaki ones, but
Yeah.
those aren't as good.
Well, I mean, I actually, I do deeply love Whisper of the Heart, and that's a non-Miyazaki one.
That one is really special too.
That is like probably among my favorites, if not my favorite of them. I just really like it. Uh, but anyway,
Porco Rosso has the immortal line of, better to be a pig than a fascist.
yes,
Absolutely. That line always kills it.
I did see his other
But
pig movie though. Not the other pig movie, the other plane movie, The Wind Rises.
oh, I have yet to see that one. But I've been kind of given the impression it is another retelling of something similar that he was trying to express through Porco Rosso.
Yeah,
It's sad and more like grounded in reality. I recently learned that the main character is voiced by Hideaki Anno, the Evangelion guy,
Really?
which is
Oh my
kind of a
goodness.
he was like sort of a mentee of Miyazaki.
Well, yeah, I'd kind of see that. I feel like a lot of works that Anno participated in kind of like draw influence from stuff that eventually also influenced Miyazaki, like Future Boy
He
Conan influencing
yeah
Nadia.
he animated the like melting giant at the end of Nazca too, which was awesome.
Really? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
yeah. There's a lot of like, it's fun to like when you sit down and like look at like lineages of things and you're like, because it's good to remember no artist kind of like comes from nowhere, and a lot of times they like come up working together, and I mean part of why do I think it's neat for artists who like work together and cooperate and
Well, I think at the end of Evangelion movie and Princess Mononoke came out in the same weekend or something like that, and the media tried to be like student versus mentee, who's gonna or mentee versus mentor, and they're like,
Yeah.
bro, we don't really have like drama like that, but
right. It's
Mm-hmm.
we gotta drum up the sales though. Speaking of mentor versus speaking of Japanese media, I'm flipping it on you, David. Do you have a favorite Toho character?
Favorite Toho character?
Yes.
I don't. I hope I pronounced it right. I think it's Cerno.
Yes,
the
Cerno.
ice fairy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's funny. She's cool. She has a song in DDR that is a samba remix of her theme from the main game. Really
Perfect.
good all around. Though it's funny, like of the three guests you had on here today,
Yes.
I feel like I probably know the most about Toho, and yet I still kind of don't know anything about it. I think I played one of them, and then that's kind of it. I have a friend who's obsessed with it.
I have spent more time. I mean, also because I spent a lot of time playing like non Zune Toho games, but I am getting more into. I have been getting more into just like I also downloaded I have all the Toho games, and I like dip a toe in every now and then. Be like, what is Toho all about? I think, but they're also like it's something you can play very quickly and very succinctly. You can just like dip in for a second because they're not going to last 6 hours.
Yeah, definitely. That's another kind of thing that's beautiful about shmups. The amount of commitment is just what you want to put into it. And there's no expectation that you have to be there for this whole long ride. But you can make it a long ride if you want.
Right, or if you're just like good at it, you can make it a very short ride. I've joked a friend of the show when she was making her top 10 list was asking me about a game. Oh, I forgot to I used to be really good at memorizing the name of every single game in Indiepocalypse, but sometimes people name their games all weird, like, and I forget the name.
Yeah.
It's a vertical shooter. It has, you're in a computer. I'm blanking on the name of it. I can just go, you're like trying to get your sister.
Oh, man, the name is slipping me too, but I know it is.
Yes. Let me just go to indiepocalypse.com and go to.
Is it Mecha-Ritz?
Let me see. I'm going to go to the top Indiepocalypse picks and go over. Let's check out Bianca Del Mar's top 10 Indiepocalypse picks and just look at it. It is Digital Soul Data.
I haven't heard of that.
It's cool.
My bad.
It is a very cool game. It is very well because you were talking like how long does this game last? I'm like 5 minutes. She's like I've been playing for hours. And that is that thing where it's like how much like. It's like somewhat your skill set, but it's like how much time do you want to commit to this thing to like quote unquote complete it,
Mm-hmm.
And I like
Definitely.
Once she seeded or whatever, she's like, oh, I don't know how to beat this game. But it is very cool. But that said, do you have a favorite type of rock? What is your favorite type of rock? This is non-optional. You have to answer this question.
Okay.
You cannot say I don't know what rocks are.
I did figure out a lot of answers to this one.
Yes.
I'll rapid fire them off for you. Rockman.
Okay.
Schoolhouse Rock. Rock On for PC Engine, the worst shmup ever made.
Ooh,
and then my serious answer is my older brother has this really shiny blue polished rock in this Hot Wheels carrying case that we had as kids. That is probably my favorite rock. I don't know what kind it is, but whenever I think of rocks, I think of that one.
Perfect. It does not need to. I'm liking this. I'm liking this. It's
a version of the prompt.
This box art for Rock On.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
It's so good. Anyway, I'm on of course the number one source of finding out about old games and obscure or terrible games, Hardcore Gaming 101. The endlessly essential part of the internet. You can tell a game is good when you search for it, and that's the first link is a Hardcore Gaming 101.
Absolutely, always.
And then the next link is a PC long play with a little number from like that PC long or like that one of those long play.
World of Long Plays.
World of Long Plays. When the top two search results are Hardcore Gaming 101 and World of Long Plays, don't even think about it. Just fire that game right up. You're in for a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, David, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on here, Andrew. It was real fun participating in this.
No,
sorry if I didn't have as much to say as everyone else did.
No,
I feel like
whatever.
I kind of under.
You didn't. Don't worry. This is as someone who's the king of imposter syndrome or whatever. You're doing fine. Like this is just like this is not a produced show where it's like, oh, we got to have fire up the Apple charts. Give me 5 stars. I mentioned this in my year in review that is now up that doesn't have a fancy URL, and I don't even think I linked to on my main page. But the fun of the show is I literally never thought about what the metrics are for it at all. I've never worried about like how many listeners does it have? Does it make any money? And it's like, but I like doing it. But I still like as obsessively as produce Indiepocalypse, produce this show every single week. Like, I gotta do it every week. Gotta do it every week. I've never missed it because I slacked. I only missed it because I was like sick or there's
something
like,
physically made it possible
right.
for you to do it.
Or I was scheduled to do like a different market or something, or I never just like missed a week, which is
Gotcha.
like, because I like doing it. It's fun.
Yeah.
The things you
It's
do
fun
should be
being
fun.
on.
Anyway, we're going on break. We'll be back with the whole gang in like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Bye for now. Hello, welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio once again. That was the Mountain Goats with Wage Wars, Get Rich, Die Handsome, which honestly is just a great title. I like it a lot. I mean, I'm one of the.
That's good.
It's my 2024 value to live by. You know, it's kind of like just going out, but. That said, there's this confluence of Exo Drifter in the chat and the Mountain Goats playing is, you know, after the Iron Circus also everyone's here. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
After the Iron Circus collab next year comes out, one of the things I want to do is like, what if I paired up with the Mountain Goats and like people just made 10 games based on Mountain Goats songs, because indie devs and art folks, people who like the Mountain Goats often feel very passionately about those songs. I think you could get a lot of cool games out of that.
Yeah. Sounds like a good Bitsy Jam theme, honestly.
Yeah, it's like, because I offhandedly will often say like, it's the beautiful thing about art is that a 2.5 minute long song can more evocatively tell a story than, you know, a 7 seasons of a TV show. And whenever I say that, I'm thinking of the Mountain Goats dance music.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah.
And that is
yeah, when I'm like
sorry, go ahead.
making games, a lot of times like it's one of those weird things where like songs are one of the things that most often like triggers me to like want to make a game or something. Like, creative.
Because he's like, they convey these like super complex ideas. They're poetry, you know. Both with music, which is one of my favorite Bitsy projects. Is also technically Bitsy 3D, but is based on that poem. That is I always forget the exact name of it. Is it That Is Just to Say, or This Is Just to Say?
Oh, the wheelbarrow. Yeah.
No, the plum one.
Oh, the plum one. That's isn't the same guy, but yeah, right. Gosh, what is that? It's the one of the ice box. I don't know the title of it. William Carlos Williams is the poet, right?
This is Just to Say. There is a Bitsy 3D game that is like, boy, I sure would like to have some plums, and then you head over to the fridge and they're empty, I believe. It's a good.
That's it.
The strength of the medium of games and 30-second experiences. Oh no, it just says there's it just says there's a note from my roommate here.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's one of my longtime favorite games is Pit of a Thousand Snakes, and that is kind of like, games are good stuff.
I love when a game is literally just like an elaborate joke or shit post. That is one of my favorite things to encounter.
Yeah, because that is, you know, there's a paragraph in my year in review that I cut out. I think I alluded to, but it's like part of my exhaustion with online is everything needs to feel like you need to be so extremely like serious about it, and it has to be so important, I guess.
There's an expectation for like prior investment.
Or like you need to be like, oh, every post you make has to be the most important. Like you are speaking from on high in your mountain about the state of video games or whatever. And I'm just like, it doesn't need to be that kind of like you know, an indie game doesn't need to be the most important thing in the world for it to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is
It's often like the works that recognize the small, like physically insignificant space they occupy, but like very emotionally important space that are the most compelling.
Right, because I think that's the problem you run into often with, like, if we talk seriously about games, and I guess this also covers pretty much all art. If you strip to, like, advertising budgets go a very long way into getting people to talk about games. And, you know, how many of these games would people talk about that they talk about if they didn't have advertising budgets?
Mm-hmm.
And what if all of these little indie games had, every little itch game had a $3 million ad budget? Would everyone talk about those too? Like, almost as it's public conversation led around by ad dollars. Who knows? Yes, probably.
Mm-hmm. Another reason you can't like get yourself overly focused on caring so much about the big stuff is like most of your best inspiration is going to come from the little things, that the mediocre projects, the things that weren't like fully realized, that you want to take a bit of and realize for yourself in their place.
Yeah, a good practice is like spend some time on Wikipedia. Go to top selling albums, highest grossing movies, and think about how many of them have any lasting cultural relevance.
Absolutely.
Or even just how much within the year, how much do they desync with like awards, like.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody with like no money, I've always been baffled about how to like advertise my work in the like tabletop space. But I guess that's not that much different than other indie art spaces.
The answer is you be friends with tabletop people and be like, hey, let's advertise each other's work. And
well, I imagine the hard thing with advertising tabletop is that unlike a game which has like visual footage to demonstrate and is like easily shareable in like a bite-sized GIF format, it's not a lot of ways you can share to lay people like, this is what my tabletop RPG is about.
I mean, on two of my games on my itch page, I have like YouTube videos of like 4-hour like actual plays of them, but it's like that's not really an accessible thing to just sit down and
that's 4 hours.
No, I have
Yeah, I'm always impressed when you find a tabletop game on itch or whatever, and they can like fully. Seems like some people are really good at just like fully communicating the vibe of their game in just like a sentence or two. I don't know if I could do that, but it is impressive when you see it.
And like the inspirations helps because you can be like, oh, I was inspired by this thing, and people are like, oh, I know what that thing is. I get what you're going at.
Yeah, it's actually I see that a lot on tabletop games, like lists of inspirations both in and outside the genre, which I think is pretty interesting. It's like a kind of neat part of the culture of that space.
I pitch Pale Dot as Outer Wilds meets No Man's Sky meets Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation.
Nice. All right, sold.
Yeah,
those are all good things in my book.
That is sideways. That is mildly related to answer the question myself of what's that non-game thing. I think once or twice a day, maybe, about Stalker, having watched it this year for the first time. And
I've yet to go down that hole.
It's a thing. Annihilation exists within the subgenre, I think, of the subgenre of like, what if Stalker had guns and things you shot? Which I've never read Roadside Picnic, so I don't know if they shoot things in Roadside Picnic, or if there are like clear antagonists.
Well, Annihilation is also like a cosmic horror.
Yeah. There. It's like it's not. I don't know if it's even. I think if you go on Wikipedia, it might be one of those things. Be like, oh, I didn't know. I didn't actually read that, but it is just.
That's a good.
Yeah. What's the word?
Good book, Annihilation. I haven't actually. I really want to see the movie sometime. Should.
The movie's good. It's really different than the book. They're both really good in their own ways.
Honestly, that's like my favorite. I love when like an adaptation is like different enough to kind of be its own thing, but sort of be a conversation.
It's one of those things where like it's Annihilation is actually the first book in a trilogy, soon to have 4 books in it, whereas the movie was going to be a standalone thing, so like it had to like wrap up in a way.
Yeah.
Right, because that's like the strength of recognizing that like these are two different mediums. You can't just one-to-one them, you know.
Yeah.
So it has to be like what is a filmic interpretation of, you know, a 400-page novel.
The funniest one of those is David Lynch's Dune.
Oh yes,
Yes. Okay. I watched that. Yeah,
I,
Fairmark and I watched that last year. I think it was last year.
I think occasionally I was just talking to friends recently and be like, man, what if David Lynch had actually directed Return of the Jedi? I would have loved to see. I would have loved to see like Jack Nance and all of his guys in Star Wars.
I want to see what David Lynch wanted to release as Dune, because they made him like edit it and change it.
Right. It's
That
yeah.
never even done like a director's cut kind of thing with that. I guess
But-
it was before the internet era, so
But it's
Yeah.
also like really weird, like how one-to-one, like so much of his like in like the casting of his Jodorowsky, like compared to Jodorowsky's version of it was like you just find to replace like who was it like Mick Jagger and then they put Sting in instead or whatever.
that's funny.
I don't know if this is a controversial opinion, but Jodorowsky's Dune sounded bad to me.
It sounded very high concept, and I don't know how it would have worked. But
It sounded like he refused to like actually read the book and know what it was about. He was just like going on vibes.
yes.
That's very funny.
But I do like when he talks. I do like when Patrick Stewart says that they have worm sign.
Oh, I love David Lynch. I'm just not a big
Yeah.
Jodorowsky fan.
No. I'm just going back on. I kind of actually do kind of love that Dune.
I do too. It's weird as fuck, and it's like barely a David Lynch movie, but it's like it takes some swings.
Right.
Yeah, and like, visually very cool.
Yes. Yeah. I think they because they didn't come out around the same time, but they were like in the public consciousness at the same time. I was thinking like both the new Dune and the new Mario Brothers movie are gonna have people going, you know, those original versions were kind of cool.
Yeah, there was definitely. I saw a lot of reactions along those lines. For
There
sure.
was like they take like hard swings, whereas like, you know, I'm sure Villeneuve's Dune is fine, but it's way more muted and feels kind of a more muted scene design style in
It's a little
movies.
bit more goth in a way that I like, though. Like
Nice.
all of the like Harkonnen stuff is pretty fucking sick looking, and the like Bene Gesserit witches are pretty sick.
See, now I haven't seen it, so the trailers are just like did it no service, you know, like the
I liked it
promotional
a lot.
footage.
I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to based off of the trailers.
Nice. I haven't seen it yet, but I did like Arrival way back when that came out, so I should check out the Dune.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch. It's almost as though there's too much art in you experience in one lifetime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
But-
that's definitely true.
And then when you just watch things for the 5th time, and you're like, my friend here hasn't seen Phantom of the Paradise yet. We need to watch it again. Which I'm just thinking about because I used it for the bumper. But if you haven't out there, that's my one rec. Phantom of the Paradise, it kicks ass.
Yeah. Anytime I'm like dating somebody new and they haven't seen Twin Peaks, I usually make them watch Twin Peaks.
I I watched Inland Empire very recently, and my friend was like, "I was going to watch that, but I was not in the mood for it." And I was like, after watching, like, yes, this is something you have to be in the mood for. You can't just like put on a 3-hour fever dream and be like,
Put it in the background.
Right, I'm just gonna watch this casually as a movie.
Put it on while you're like doing laundry or cooking or something.
What a treat!
Happens.
And like honestly, David Lynch is like the perfect poster child for like people are like more into weird stuff than you think they are. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
if you like give people like the creative leniency, like the audiences are actually like super receptive to just like things that feel distinct and of their own. Like because
What?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, not to cut you off. One thing I kind of noticed, especially this year with movies like Spider-Verse really like hitting it off, is people are very receptive to things that are divergent, but it has to be like at least a little bit grounded in something they're already familiar with.
Right.
Yeah.
Like something like Spider-Verse probably wouldn't have like left the cultural impact it did if it wasn't like Spider-Verse, like something people already know and are comfortable with. Like if it was its own IP,
You're right.
it
Right.
would be
That
maybe
is
harder to like get into it.
the curse of IP.
Yeah, it is
Speaking of
unfortunate.
speaking of familiar IPs, did any of you watch The Green Knight?
Yes, I did. My favorite IP, Arthurian mythology.
Yeah.
I feel like I was sold a
Yeah, I
bill.
watched. Yeah, I watched that. Yeah, I really liked that.
Yeah,
I liked it too.
I did too, but I feel like I was sold a bill of goods when like it wasn't that weird.
It was pretty weird.
It was pretty weird, but I'm like I've seen weirder.
Yeah.
Visually very like, yeah, very. I felt like really rich visually. Kind of
Right.
want to watch it again since we're getting into the like correct season for it.
Also, Dev Patel was a perfect like helpless himbo in that movie.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
what a.
he was very good. It's very good. Yeah.
But I think that's like it is kind of like the way they have to market it, the kind of like subgenre of the A24 IP or whatever,
For sure.
where it's like,
Yeah.
these are because that was an A24 film, right?
It was,
They
yeah.
produced it. Who
For sure.
who directed Green Knight? We're at the Wikipedia portion of the show where I go.
Yeah.
Who directed Green Knight? Did he make that? David Lowery. Did he make that? No, he didn't. Oh, Ghost Story. That's what it was. I was on his page recently because I think it was because I was looking at Ghost Story, and I was like, he's making a Peter Pan movie.
That's funny.
Off to the IP mines for you.
I'm surprised
Yeah.
we haven't had a super grimdark Peter Pan yet.
They tried to do like an action version in like the 2010s or something, I think. I vaguely remember.
I think I remember that too.
This already came out.
Oh, I have heard nothing about it.
Yeah.
This is now. Now, if I can have a personal soapbox, the curse, like the sign of the downfall of film as a medium, is that on Wikipedia now, things like audience viewership and box office numbers in the reception section appears before critical response. I've noticed that recently, and it is truly the curse of the internet and everything.
The box office thing is interesting, yeah. How much of a like cultural obsession it's become of like how much money the movie you like made.
Right.
I feel like that was not a thing. Yeah.
It's a bizarrely
Yeah.
religious thing.
And especially because like movies are like making less money now than they did in a way. Like I was sitting with a friend watching movies, watching some high art film, of course, which is to say some shitty 80s horror movie. And I was just like sitting around and I was reading box office numbers, and they're like like if you just go through like the decline is like super obvious. Like you see the death of the mid-range film, and like
Definitely.
and things make less. There are some things at the top make more money, but overall things make way less money.
Yeah.
Like there was a point where it was like I think it was like in 2020. Also, all the top 10 movies are all franchises.
Oh no.
Every single one of them is franchises. No, they were like when there was like it's a fun exercise out there in Radio Land. Just go to probably like Box Office Mojo or any of those sites and just like go through top and like play a game of like when do the franchises, like it's around the 2000s, I think it's like you start to see majority franchises inside of the top 10, and until now they're exclusively franchises.
It does feel like the decline in mid-tier movies is kind of spurred on by the same point that the Marvel franchises start to really develop out, you know?
Right. It's that, and then it's streaming, which is like the kind of like changes how people approach cinema because you just like release a movie onto streaming, which makes way less money for everyone involved in the movies, but the streamers get the cash. I don't need to tell you this. I don't need to explain.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the
The whole-
funniest part of it, I think I've heard streaming isn't even like profitable for a
No.
lot of these corporations. It's just they got to keep up the illusion that it is because it means like people will keep investing in them.
The Netflix business model is fucking evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's why you can make a movie and then not release it because it makes more money that way.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Oh yeah,
I
that's so
assume we
good.
all know
So,
about the Wile E. Coyote situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of many in that.
One of
field.
many, yeah.
yeah, such a weird world where you can like make more money, has like a tax write-off from it instead of
Yeah,
publishing the damn movie. Okay.
because as someone who does get, I mean, I get tax money from Indiepocalypse, basically. Every year, I'm like, hey, look, everywhere I go to the IRS and say, look how much money I lost, and they're like, we're sorry, and they give me money back.
That's like my band.
Yeah, right. That's the benefits of keeping bookkeeping. And the fun thing like of online tax filing is like sequentially I report my income from Indiepocalypse first, so it's like the government's like, "Oh boy, you're in for trouble. You owe us a lot of money." Until I hit them with the old 1-2 of, "Look how much money
No,
I
I
lost
didn't.
though. I didn't make any money." But I lost less money this year, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I say. They're close to like, it's close to being profitable. No, no, it's not close to profitable. More issues are close. There's a couple there within $10 of just like being strictly profitable. But, those are like issue 3 and 4.
Andrew, I wanted to jump in because I didn't get to answer the question about how I learned about Indiepocalypse.
Oh yes,
Wanted to
I did.
contribute-
I often don't ask
Oh
people
my
that are
goodness.
not in it because it feels arrogant.
Oh no, it's cool.
Yes.
But I did want to.
How did you? I was going to mention during the break. Also, it was weird because you and someone else followed me like back to back. So I wonder if it was at the same time.
Oh, I don't know. But what I do know is that yeah, I'm pretty sure the place I found about Indiepocalypse was through Natalie Lawhead's
Yes.
probably Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
At some point, like very early on, I was like, could I? What if I put or not Indiepocalypse? I put Electric Zine Maker in a issue of Indiepocalypse to encourage people to make them, and then they've been in there ever since.
yeah, exactly. So I gather that they're a bit of a friend of the zine in that sense.
One of the first radio guests,
Nice. I should go back and check that out.
if I recall.
But yeah,
If I recall correctly, it was them, Nielsen Carroll, and Sophie, whose name I can't remember, who makes Spare Parts. I believe were the first 3. Were they the first
cool.
3 guests? Yes, it was. Those were the first 3 guests.
nice.
All those many years ago. And yeah, now
Yeah, that's how I found it. Yeah, Electric Zine Maker is awesome for sure. I definitely consider like Natalie to be one of my sort of like peers in the making weird art tool software stuff online.
Yeah,
So
it's and there's much like Bitsy. There's tons of things you can see, tons of zines on itch that are made in Electric Zine Maker because it easily like helps you. It's the tool, all the tools you need.
yeah, for sure. I've used it to make a zine about my cat.
Yeah, I
want-
use it to make intro zine to Indiepocalypse to bring to events
Nice.
because I got sick of
Yeah.
explaining what this thing was.
just here, take this.
Right, read this. I do still explain it because there's just a lot to explain about it. But and I also recommend game devs out there, like game devs in here. Um, Go to local events. They're cool. They're cool. They're cheap, and people are like, video games neat.
I live in San Francisco, so my local events are like GDC and shit like that, which is not cheap.
No, but I'm sure there's local San Francisco Zine Fest and stuff and art markets.
Oh
Right?
yeah, there's smaller things, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, those are the ones I'm talking about.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I've been going to, I go to the thing I go in Providence is just the Anti-Robot Club. It's not nothing. It's just a locally organized art market, and they do other I think other shows and other events too.
yeah. We got a great like zine and comic, like I don't know, alt comics thing here in Seattle called Short Run every year that I love to go to. You always just discover the coolest stuff in
I
those
am
things.
I am trying to I'm figuring out ways I can sneak my way into, because that is if I had the resources to make conventions or whatever, I would just the thing I'd be laser focused on would be like indie alt comic shows,
Mm-hmm.
because they are the things that as a game developers are lacking are shows like that to go to.
Mm-hmm.
They're all GDC is not it's like a network. It's for corporations,
Yeah.
It's like it's a corporate networking event. It's not for a guy who is just a person going to I make a thing by myself. I'm going to go to GDC because unless you're looking for a job, it's so that people will like me, I guess, and they can talk about my stuff. That's the thing. That's the earnest thought I thought about when what's the benefit of me attending that? And there is none besides I endear people to me personally in the project. It's not like I'm going to sign with Sony or anything. I've been told straightforward up front that my experience does not translate to game production. You would think that, but you see, but I thought about it. It makes sense that working with game developers to release something on a timely schedule is not really within the realm of game production. But
well, one thing to again on the comics stuff though,
yeah,
just thinking about it. I mean, one of the things I appreciate about Indiepocalypse and why I think it's so cool that it exists is that a lot of my favorite art stuff I find in other mediums, it comes out of small presses and I mentioned KEXP, it's sort of just a pretty popular radio station, but it is it's kind of like our local alternative music radio station, and I
right.
don't know, all that kind of stuff. And it can be kind of there's definitely stuff out there for games, and I feel like there's more, I don't know, at least more that I'm aware of in the last few years than there used to be. But
Yeah, I
feels like it
hosted a
can be
panel. I recorded a while ago, but it went up some point last month for Superfest with other small press game people.
nice. That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah. And I just feel the more stuff like that, the that's out there, the better for games and people who
right,
playing and making them.
because it the current system really limits the kind of games that get made. Because
Right.
if you have to pitch to a publisher or make a game that is what is expected of a video game, you have to spend a lot of time or money, making a
Yeah.
game when it's no, you can just make a game in a weekend, and it's good.
Yeah. And when you're doing something small, whether they're in low budget, whether it's the game or or the publication or label or whatever. Yeah, it just lets you I feel like it gives you more freedom to like have a particular specific voice instead of being forced to kind of be everything to everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just commissioned, like I just or lined up my May commission, and they're like, "Do anything? Is there any guidelines, any theme?" I'm like, no, you should just do whatever you want. I don't really care. Just like, uh, my philosophy is just like I think there ought to be a space where it's just like people will get paid to just make whatever kind of game they want to make, and to kind of put in people's mind is like, oh, I can get commissioned and paid to make games, huh? Why doesn't it happen more often? That'll be like a more commonplace thing. There ought to be more like compilations and anthologies and like small press stuff that is like really focused around low risk, low return kind of things. It's not like every zine maker is like, oh, how am I going to get my zine turned, my mini comic turned into a Netflix show? But there's still like a culture to receive mini comics and stuff like that, where games it feels less clear than just I publish it on itch, I guess. So that's partially where I'm like, hey, I'm trying to be that space, where people can be like, yeah, okay, I know where if I make a little game, I know one place I can send it to.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Hand Eye Society also does. I think they're still doing. I haven't. They have been doing like
Oh yeah.
semi-regular paid mixtapes. They call them of games. Like little indie games. A lot of crossover even. I believe aforementioned contributor, friend of the show, Roxy S was also in both Indiepocalypse and within the indie mixtape, if I remember correctly. I may be
That could be right.
I may be misremembering, but it
I
sounds
have to
right
admit,
to
I
me.
haven't heard of the indie mixtape before.
Or were they in
Yeah,
Superfest? It might have been in Superfest. Not a gotcha thing. Anyway.
Yeah, it looks like the most recent Anti Society mixtape came out like a couple months ago, basically.
Yeah, so they're still trucking at it. Yeah, that's the other thing I try to do is like, hey, I'm one person. I'm trying to, where I can, point people towards everybody else. People need as many kind of opportunities as they can to, like, Indiepocalypse by like not necessity is a weird way to say it, but it can't be like can't be everything for all the devs. It's like not a as two of the three 2/3 of the guests can attend to. It's not a lot of money.
I mean, curation is important.
Yes, yeah, helping to like just put like a little stamp and be like, and also I hate promoting stuff, but
it's miserable.
I think I hate it a little bit less than everyone else, so I can be that person that promotes things for people. Because the idea of like every single game developer must also be their own marketing team, because there is like no other way to promote your games, seems exhausting.
It is really exhausting.
So
a lot of it, especially, is like, if you're the kind of person that can put in the time and energy to make some big project, you're probably not paying a lot of attention to like social media trends as far as like what people are picking up on.
Right, so then you have to find like what your version of it is, and like how you market it, and it's just so much work, and I hopefully will be the person to help do that work for someone. That's the goal, you know.
Speaking for myself, just being brought on for issue 45, even if it was just like for that one issue, it was such a huge thing to be a part of.
Yeah,
So like, yeah.
and they don't go away either. Like, it's not like these issues go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
On my God, I'm looking at the mixtape and I'm like, there's a lot of crossover here. A lot more than I expected. But it is you know, on my own site, I list them in order. You know, it's number one is the very first one you see. It goes oldest to newest on my own website because you know these things are not supposed to be like the newest is not the best. This idea of like I got to get the new hot thing. It's like it's unsustainable. Oh no, I got to fix this page. It's not centered. My add to cart button is not centered for the newest issue. But yeah, it's impractical. I wish there was more space. But anyway, this is me. I gotta start wrapping up the show. We're cresting into the 2-hour realm.
Oh no.
Symphony music starts playing.
Yeah, this is where I'm. What's that? I'm getting a wrap it up sign from my stomach.
Oh!
It's saying I'm hungry. You've been talking too much. So we're gonna wrap up the show, but not before we get to where do I? One column. Oh, it had an error. Oh no. Anyway, I'll fix it eventually. Not before we get to the most important part of the show, which is, hey, I need people to promote their stuff. Where can people find your stuff? We're going to go around. I'm going to close all these extra windows that don't need to be open anymore so I can get the links. I closed them. What a fool I was. Before I do this, important question. Before we go, does anyone else have any other last minute statements, questions, things they must get out?
No.
Perfect.
I guess I'll just say,
yes.
If like this discussion we were having at the end, if folks are interested in reading more or similar things, I recently reread a blog post called "Imagining Decentralized Video Game Culture: Unprofessional Game Criticism" by Leroy Lewin. I'll put the link in the chat here.
Perfect. And I will put
it's a good read.
And I'll put a link in the other chat. Yeah, there's like, you know, that I'm not going to get into the weeds of this again. That's a whole discussion, which is if you spend too much time online, you're very convinced that video games as a medium are one thing, but they're not that thing. And I would say the video game industry makes up a very small portion of the people who are actually making video games. And I don't think being part of the industry is an end point or even aspirational, and that should not harm one's desire to make games. But
I would love to get paid money to compose music for a video game, though.
Yes, that's the thing, though. That's why the curse of like, well, you do want to get money, though. You got to flirt with the industry occasionally to get paid. But it's not like but even then, it doesn't mean you have to identify as being part of it, I guess. You're a casual participant. But that said, now we're going to get to promoting stuff. And David, what have you got to promote? Where can people find your work?
You can find my work at pd/cgt.hio. I can put the link just easy down here.
I've got it already. Don't worry
about it. Besides Cycle Chaser, since then I've done a Game Jam game, and I got a demo for a platformer I'm working on, and I've even got like a little section where you can check out games from other people I've worked with, and if you know Roxy S, her stuff is there too,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's also part of Indiepocalypse.
Yeah. There you go. Neo Trogla. There it is. I was adding way too many letters in my brain.
There
Oh.
you go.
John Topaleski, also a past contributor.
Really?
I believe so. Yes, yes. A Mid Clubber's Night Dream was in a very early issue of Indiepocalypse. I think like a single digit one, maybe.
Okay. I have to admit, I don't know John, but I know the person who composed the soundtrack for this game,
Yes.
and that's why I include it here.
No, that's fine. There's. What is this? Huh. And that is also. This is also sometimes how I just like find developers. Like I just like to follow like these threads of collaboration, you know.
Yeah.
And that is like another thing that had no space within my year in review is that the blog style, the personal feed style, it creates incuriosity. And Indiepocalypse is for people who are looking to find new art, not people who are looking to have art sold to them. I did put that sentence in there.
That's a very good way of looking at it.
Yes, that is. Why I was like, what a sentence. I'm proud of that one. But speaking of things they're proud of, Adam, where can people find your stuff if you're looking to find
All right,
stuff?
yeah. So I have a website.
Yes.
It's adamledoux.net, and you pretty much get from there to anything else where I am on the web. Got a little blog, got links to my games. I got an itch page as well. And yeah, most recently, earlier this year, I published a Game Boy Advance game called With the Last Moonbeam. And just a couple weeks ago, I made another Bitsy game called Going to the Store for Baby Formula at 6 a.m. on Black Friday. So those are my most
Yes.
recent games.
I kept meaning to bring it up. We didn't have time. I guess, but also understand to be expected. A game developer yourself.
Yeah, I've got a itch page. Most of the stuff on there is Bitsy games I've made, with the exception of that Game Boy Advance game, basically. And
That's really
I'm
cool.
starting the very beginnings of working on a GameCube game and writing about that on my blog. So if you're
Really?
curious about that process, something you can follow along with there as I
Homebrew
get into the
homebrew
weeds on
stuff
that.
is very cool, and like people are still like receptive to it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's fun. It's appeals to me because it's kind of like in sort of the way that Bitsy has some pretty hard and fast limitations. You have kind of a similar thing with Homebrew where like whatever platform you pick will have some technical limitations that you have to either choose to work with or try and fight against. And I find for me both of those are like productive creatively. So yeah.
And finally, Devin, hello. Where can people find your work?
I'm on on all the socials at Devin Decibel. You can find my tabletop games at devindecibel.itch.io. You can find my solo composition music at devindecibel.bandcamp.com. You can find my band, Gloomy June. We're on Spotify and Apple, and also Bandcamp, gloomyjune.bandcamp.com. What else I got? I haven't mentioned it at all today, but I'm also on a tabletop role-playing podcast that I'm also the composer for, and that's called Oathsworn. And I think that's all my stuff.
Perfect. The multifaceted hustle of the modern artist.
I quit my job as a high school teacher, and now I have to monetize all my hobbies to make rent.
I do not have the courage for that life. I'm like love it in my day job. Love to have it.
I've made so much art in the last 2 years, and every single month I'm panicking about making rent. So it's a choice.
Yes, I have made 3 things that are the 3 video game sketches, not even games, in the past 4 years. But I've got money. When I learned my car was broken in half, I was able to get a new one, which is essential. I need one in order to go to work. It's the cruel cycle. It was a very bizarre experience where it's like I was like, "Oh, my car sounds weird," and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, look at this part. You know the part that connects your tires together? Yeah, it's broken." I'm like, "Huh, that's bad. I think the car is supposed to be. I think the tires are supposed to be connected to each other." But anyway, speaking of promotion, Indiepocalypse, you know you get it. You go to indiepocalypse.com. That's where you buy Indiepocalypse. It's the home of that. If you buy issues 43, 45, and 46, these people, 2 of the people here, might get some cash going their way. How close are you? I just added a bunch of stuff to my spreadsheet yesterday. How close are 45 and 40? Oh, actually, 45 and 46 are due at their next cycle. At the end of this month. Although I usually my contract says I pay them at the end of the month, but I usually space it out across the month just so I don't end up in a situation where I get nailed by like a bunch that just happen to all reach their goal. So David and Devin, expect somewhere around $9 coming your way some point in December.
Let's go.
I can buy 3 Burger King snack wraps.
I was going to say, get yourself a Big Mac meal.
I could buy 2 iced coffees. God.
Perfect. The dream. That's the true dream. I say that jokingly, but I actually do love paying royalties. It's kind of, it's like the reason to do it. It's like it's something I wish were more common and that kind of thing. Like, my philosophy is if someone is profiting off of your work, you should also be profiting off of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's plain and simple. There should be no situation where work I made, someone is continually making money off of that I am not making money off of anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool to make any money at all off of art in a world that kind of makes that not a accessible way to make money.
Yes, right. That is, like, and that limits the kind of art, because you have to, like, well, this is the kind of art that makes money, so I guess I have to make that kind of art, which inherently I mean,
that's a whole other conversation that we can't get into.
Yes, right. The fact that it takes money to make art. Why? Hey, don't, I've mentioned this last week. The old adage of don't ask an indie musician why their parents have blue names on Wikipedia.
Oh no.
Anyway, that's the thing. If you want to join Indiepocalypse, indiepocalypse.com/submit. There's a Patreon where you can get. That's the only way. If you want to get just the commission games each month for only $5 a month, you can get those there at indiepocalypse.com/Patreon. And physical editions of Indiepocalypse, they're cool things. You can get them at indiepocalypse.com/tapes. Indie devs. I think something I'm going to do in 2024 is I'm just going to, like, if someone wants to release their game on tape but doesn't want to worry about, and tape, by tape I mean USB stick instead of a cassette case, but they don't want to worry about the logistics of shipping things or producing things, I'm going to probably just open up to be like, hey, for a small taste, I will just sell your game physically for you, because I think I'm steadfast in believing this is like these like little USB sticks and cassette cases are like the zine equivalent format for game developers that are super low cost. I can sell at physical events, kind of thing. Anyway, that's the show. Devin, Adam, David, thank you all for being here on the show with me. Thank you for making games and making tools for games and being part of Indiepocalypse and provide the tools that so many Indiepocalypse developers use. And generally,
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having me here too.
I like.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
it's cool to like have you here too, Adam. Like I know Bitsy, huge presence in the indie space. Who knows how many people never would have made an indie game because of like all of the educational limitations and expectations to just make a small product. But like Bitsy, so many people have done it just because of that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we can't obviously see me because I'm
Yeah.
on audio here, but definitely making me blush a little. But yeah, I appreciate that.
Oh my
It's so
goodness.
cool to see.
Yeah, no,
I
that
don't know how
is.
far people use the tool beyond what I ever imagined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, and that is kind of part of this. Is I think making a space, Indiepocalypse Radio is it is that post-con hangout without having to travel to conventions. It is getting people in rooms together. It's hanging out. But we're done hanging out. I'm gonna go order chicken. Uh,
Ooh.
Chicken and boba. There's a Korean chicken place nearby that's fairly new, and it's great deal, and you get like a whole meal for a good deal, and I love it.
Sounds good. I'm gonna go microwave something leftovers.
Yes, I have. Okay, we're not gonna get into food. My secret passion outside of video games. There was the one last thing I'll mention is one of the things I got into this year was the podcast Doughboys. And I had a very sincere thought that I didn't include in my year in review because it didn't fit in, but I was like, there is a clearer, like as kind of like a piece of evidence of like I don't think I fit into the game industry with Indiepocalypse. Is like I earnestly thought like there's a clearer path for me to get onto that show, that podcast, than there is for me to ever get coverage in like Games Press ever again. Like the lines felt so much clearer and so much doable. But that's it. That was just a thing I need to get out of my brain because I didn't get it out in that year in review. That's my other goal for 2024. Get Andrew on Doughboys. I love shitty food. Anyway, goodbye.
Farewell.
Take care.